Okay, we're almost through styles. All right, I know styles are a little bit dry, but it's important to know how they work. The nice thing is that once you know how point styles work, if you go into your settings tab, once you know how point styles work, it applies to all the features. Styles work the same way regardless if it's points, surfaces, parcels, profiles, etc. They all work the same way. Okay, so let's check out some label styles. So let's say I want to go and show my elevations for my points. So I'm going to go to my all points point group. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go properties. And I'm going to change my point label style to elevation only. And I'm going to say OK. And that'll update all my points on my screen to my new label style. Let's say I need to make some edits to this style. So what I could do is I could make a new style if I want, or I can edit the existing one. Let's try edit the existing one. So maybe I want to add in 3 decimal place precision to my point elevations rather than 2. Well, what I can do is I can right click on my all points group, go to properties, and I can find that elevation only, and I can hit my drop down and I can go edit current selection if I want. If I wanted to make a new style with 3 decimal places, I could copy that. That would be the fastest. Notice you can also do that same thing over here as well in the settings tab. If I go into point and I go to label styles, it'll show the label style here as well. Now you've probably noticed a little yellow triangle beside these styles. Whenever you see that yellow triangle, that means there's objects in this project currently using that style. And it's kind of a warning saying that if you change that, there's objects that are going to be using that style. You're going to see those edits pop up. And notice here you'll see that there's another yellow triangle under a different style, and it's obviously not being displayed on my screen because I can't see any point number or descriptions. But sometimes a style can be used in a project but just not displayed on the screen. It might be set as a default style somewhere, and that is important. So if you wanted to see what your default style was, you could right click on your feature setting and click edit and bring up your feature settings box. And notice you've got a section here called default styles. Well, guess which one is set as the default? That point number, elevation, and description. That's why it has the little yellow triangle beside it over here. Okay, so this means that any new points you create are going to be created and labeled and styled with the basic point style and the point label style. So this is saved in the template as well. If you're always using the same point style and label style, you should change these up so it's a little bit less work for you. You don't have to change them after you brought your data in. So set this stuff up before. It only applies to new objects that are going to be created, not existing objects. Okay, you got to change that somewhere else. So I want to create a new point style for my elevations for 3 decimal place precision. So like I say, you can right click here and go edit if you want, or copy or make a new section, or I can right click on all points point group and go to the actual object and go into my object properties and change it here. So I'm going to hit my drop down. I'm just going to edit the current selection. I could make a new one if I wanted to, but I'm going to edit it. I've got a few different tabs here. The name, here's the general tab. So if I wanted to turn the visibility of that style off, it's kind of like setting it to none. So often you probably wouldn't want to do that, but here's the base layer. So whenever that an AutoCAD user opens up a drawing that is using these points, they're not going to see the elevation only style. They're going to be only looking at layers, and that's what layer this particular label style is going to be put on. Okay, you can change the readability of it, true or false. The readability bias is how far it has to rotate before the label will flip over top, and you can have anchors as well. The important thing is the layout tab. This is how everything is shown. So right now you've got the name of that particular component. So notice there's a number of different components. In this one we've just got elevation. So I'll show that in a minute. You got another visibility one here as well. Here's some anchor points to show how it's going to be orientated. So for instance, you can change the orientation of that if you like. It's kind of up to you, however you like it, personal preference. So the text height can be changed here. If you want something different, you can change that also if through this box. the orientation, so the X offset and Y offset, so you can move it up and down or to the sides if you like. The color, if you wanted to, you can add in a little bit of color to that label style also, and the line weight as well. But most importantly is the content section. So in the content section, if you wanted to change something like maybe the font or the text style or the number of decimal points, you can go into the content section and hit that little button with 3 dots beside it, and up it comes. Now what's important in the text component editor is on the right hand side it shows you what kind of programming or coding is currently being used to display the style. You don't need to worry so much about that, but what you should do is you have to select this first and then make the change. So right now maybe I want to show it in meters, and I want to show that elevation to 3 decimal points. So you make whatever changes you need to make here. You have to hit this little arrow button, otherwise your edits won't be considered. So you click the little button. This will change slightly. You don't have to worry so much about it. You can say OK, and bingo, now my elevations have changed to metric, and I can say apply, OK, and OK, and then everything on my screen will change to reflect my new style. Now, let's say I wanted to edit that style again. So I can right click, go into my properties, or I can get to it from the settings tab as we mentioned before. I can go and edit that style there, right click on it, go edit. There's my same style. Now let's say I wanted to add in an M after the elevation to say 30.480 meters. Well, I can do that through this contents box as well. So I can click that little contents box, go back in here. Don't type anything in between these little brackets on the ends. Those are off limits, anything in between there. But anything after that you can change. So if I wanted to add in a little M to the very end, I can do that. I can also get rid of this whole thing here and just start from scratch, where I can change whatever options I want. And as long as I hit my arrow button, everything will be updated as well. So I'm going to type in a little M. I'm going to say OK. And when I say OK, off comes my little M will pop up on my screen, and for every single point. Now let's go back in that elevation one more time. Sometimes you'll have to move stuff out of the way. Like for instance, for this point here, I got a couple of points overlapping. That's not going to work for me. So what I want to do is pay attention to what's going to happen to that point if I drag that label around. So I'm going to go back into my text editor here, and I'm going to go to move away from my layout tab. You've got another tab here called drag state. What that label is going to look like if I drag it around, right? So you can set some of the settings, change your leader type and all your line weights and colors and things like that, right? So sometimes you might want to change the color to be the same as what your label style is or your object style, and then say OK. But any changes are in there, and then what happens is if I decide to go ahead and select a label, notice that I've got 2 markers, okay, 2 little vertices here. I got one vertice that is for the label. If I move this vertice here, I'm going to be moving the point. Okay, so I don't want to move the point, I just want to move the label. So I'm going to pick that little square node, and I'm just going to drag it around. And you'll notice that as I drag it, it'll come up with a little arrowhead for me. That's the drag state. That's what that means. Okay, so be careful whenever you select an object. You can actually move the point, which you probably don't want to do. Okay, I'll just undo that, and then go select it and pick the label marker. That'll be a little bit easier. All right, so that'll be more helpful. And if you don't move it far enough, it doesn't have enough room to make the arrowhead, so you got to keep on moving a little bit farther, and then that arrowhead will pop in. You can change all those settings as well, though, in the label style. So remember, in my default styles, under my features, I right click on my feature in my settings tab. Remember, I'm in my settings tab because I'm dealing with styles and how things look. So I'm going to right click on my feature, which is points. I'm going to go edit feature style, and I'm going to go into my default styles here. So let's say I don't want to use a default style basic for my objects. Maybe I want to use something different, like maybe I'm putting in a bunch of manholes. So I'll say OK to that, and I can also change the default label style to something like maybe just description only. All right, so what that means is that any new objects that are created are going to be using these styles automatically, and I can change those again later. So now if I wanted to create a new point, I'm going to have to go into my Prospector tab, because remember, the Prospector tab reflects any data that could be created or edited or manipulated. The Settings tab reflects how things look. So if I want to make a new point or edit or delete a point, I got to go to the Prospector tab. If I want to change how a point looks, I go to the Settings tab. Okay, so I'm going to make a new point, and if I can't remember how to make points, chances are it'll come up in your right-click menu. So you go to the Prospector tab, you can right-click and look at there. It says Create. You can also check the ribbon on your Home tab. Most of your data is organized here for creating new stuff. For instance, in my Create Ground Data, I've got a point section here, and I've got a whole bunch of different point creation tools listed. But again, if you can't find that, just right-click on the object, go Create, and up comes my little temporary pull-down. The other nice thing about Civil 3D is that you can use the pull-down menus, and I would recommend using that, you guys, because it's sometimes easier to find stuff through the pull-down menus. And if you want to find your pull-down menus, hit the drop-down beside your quick access toolbar and go Show Menu Bar. Okay, and you'll see that now I've got a bunch of pull-down menus, things like General, Survey, here's points, right? And they're a little bit more easier categorized in this section here. So you can get to the same tools here. If I want to create a point manually, I can do it through the pull down. I can also do it by right clicking on points, go create, this little box pops up, and I can do it here as well. Let's go put in a point, and what should happen? It should come up with my default point style and my default label style. So I'm going to go ahead and select manual, and I'm going to read the command line because it's going to ask me some questions. Please specify a location. So I could type in an XY coordinate. Remember, X comes first, Y comes second, or I can graphically just pick a point on the screen. It's going to ask me, what do you want called for this point description? And I'm going to say I want this to be manhole. I'm going to hit enter. It says, what do you want the elevation to be? I'll say I want it to be at elevation 100. Let's say 90, and then say enter, and it pops. And that's basically it for styles. And as you work with them more, you'll find that you'll be more comfortable with working with styles. But remember, you want to stay away from layers because some of these styles are very dependent upon layers to define them. So for instance, as an example, if I came into say one of my profile styles to show how I wanted to display a profile, if I took a look at one of these basic profile styles here, I can right click on that style and go edit. And if I go to this display tab, check out all the different layers that this one style is using. So if I wanted to freeze this layer using styles, I'd have to go in and find each one of these layers in the layer manager and freeze them manually. If I wanted to turn on that profile again later, I'd have to find all of those layers and turn them on manually. But it's much easier with the styles because all I need to do is go to the object that I'm looking for and turn it off. So if I dig under alignments, for instance, I can find all my profile styles listed under there, and I can turn it off that way. So I can go properties. Let's zoom in so we can see our profiles. But I can go into that property for that particular object and set it to none or make a new style. So if I don't have a none style here, that's not a problem. I can just go ahead and make one easier. I'm just going to go create new. I'm going to call it off, and I'm going to make sure that on my display everything is frozen. So I'm going to select them all, turn all my light bulbs off, say OK, say apply, and use that style now. And then that particular profile, whichever one I was using, is now should be turned off. And I can do that for all of them because that style will still be left there from before. Okay, and that profile line is now gone, wherever it was in that this guy here, I think it was. So that's much easier than turning layers on and off. And that's about it for styles. Thanks for listening.